Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm Joe Mata.
And my name is Estera.
Okay, Emilia. My name is Emilia. And
I'm Irene.
And I'm Edward Chisaka.
Yes, we got our challenge from Occupational and Environmental Medicine in the region of Stockholm, and it was how might we optimize the design of cities to promote good and equitable public health. Today we'll show you how our solution approaches healthier and more accessible city planning through data analysis and urban design.
Yeah, so in the beginning we started by conducting interview, and we had a total of 15 interviews, and after that interview, from the information that we collected, we then formulated 4 user group representatives, which we call them personas, and these were Amira, Erica, Johan, and Dr. Lindberg. And starting with Amira, Starting with Amira, the insight that we got from her is that availability of green spaces and infrastructure does not equal accessibility and usability, because it showed us that just building green spaces is not enough. If they're not safe or easy to use, then people won't use them. And then from Erica, who represents a municipal planner, from how we got the insight that economic and development pressures require continuous trade-off, because she highlighted that the struggles that planners often face, that they want to focus on health and environment, but they are constantly forced to make compromises due to budget and development pressures. And then we have Johan, who represents the regional planner, and from him we got the insight that fragmented governance requires stronger collaboration across level, because mostly the decision is based on the municipal levels, and then if a problem is regional, it means it needs collaboration between different actors from the municipal level. And you mean that different municipalities have different priorities. And then lastly, we have Dr. Lindberg, who represent the researcher group, and from her we got the insight that health urban design requires better access and use of data. It's not that there is data, and there are ways and knowledge of how to create a healthier urban environment, but what is missing is that the translation of those data into clear and useful steps for planners, so that they can use them and be able to visualize what their priority decisions or plans are. Yeah, and then we came to the part after collecting those insights. Then we came to redefine our challenge, and the new statement was, how might we find an acceptable balance of health factors that can be applied in the design of new urban residential areas.
Yeah, and inspired by this new redefined challenge, we generated many ideas, but we chose 5 best solutions. And with Sync It, we wanted to address the fact that there is a lot of data that is already gathered, but it's separated between different stakeholders and different systems, and we wanted to gather the data, aggregate it, and create a platform for it.
So for the ground truth, we talked about coming to the realization that planning processes do not always allow or fully reflect how people actually see and use spaces in real life. What I mean by this is we wanted to explore how living or lived experiences and everyday behavior could become a more visible part of urban planning and decision making. Then we went into Balance X.
And Balance X was a response for the fragmented collaboration between actors. So we wanted to create a space or a workshop where actors who work in different areas could who have different priorities could meet and discuss and negotiate and understand the trade-off that they face together.
Planopolis grow from the idea that many planning decisions are difficult to understand because their consequences remain abstract. So through gamification and simulation, we wanted to make the trade-offs and guidelines more visible.
And last one, Green It, comes from the focuses on how green spaces are often reduced during urban planning because of competing priorities and economic pressures. And even if there are green spaces there, they are not necessarily used by people. So in this idea, we wanted the citizens to be a part of the creating process of these in-between spaces. Yes. Okay, so this was how we came up with the final idea that we chose, which you can see is the Planopolis one that went with the highest scores. And these feedback, feasibility, fun, innovation, that was our different weights. And we focused on feedbacks from experts and challenge owners. Well, that was weighted the highest, since relevance and practical value was the most important to us. And fun to use, I mean, you want something to be fun, right? And innovation, we scored at the lowest just because we thought that all of these ideas were kind of innovative in themselves. So that's how we came up with Planopolis. Okay.
Okay, before moving forward to our challenge, so we wanted to formulate our challenge in order to guide us through how we could design Planopolis, and our new redefined challenge was how might we help planners visualize and explore trade-off between public health factors and other competing priorities in residential area design.
Awesome. So let me break it down for you what exactly Planopolis is. So urban planning is often described as balancing priorities. And this is a polite way of saying no matter what you do, someone will probably complain. What do I mean by this exactly? Stay with me here. So if we add more housing to an area, that is great, right? This helps with the housing demands. But maybe now people live closer to each other and this creates some traffic, noise traffic. If you had parking, for example, that's also great, convenience. But there goes the green spaces. So this is what I mean by balancing priorities, but someone will always complain. So during our work, we noticed that planning decisions are often made in silos. Traffic experts focus on mobility, environmental experts focus on green spaces, housing developers focus on the density and ensuring that everyone gets a place to live, and everyone is right. No one's wrong in their own perspectives. But the problem is that these consequences rarely stay in one category, and it becomes difficult to see the bigger picture. So we asked ourselves, what if urban planning worked a little more like a simulation game? And the idea became Planopolis, a gamified tool for exploring trade-offs in urban planning, especially connected to public health. So instead of trying to simplify urban planning, Planopolis tries to make the complexities visible. The concept is built as a digital simulation where user groups of designers, they can design parts of a city. And here we're talking about buildings, roads, walk paths, bike paths, basically the entire infrastructure with realistic planning constraints. And the decisions they make, the system provides immediate feedback. So if we can jump straight into the demo, and let's build an ideal city today.
Users start by entering the
Awesome.
website that is available now and selecting their role. For this demonstration, we are just entering Planopolis as a guest using an email login. The first step would be selecting a planning scenario. Right now, we are able to choose an empty plot of land, but in the future development, this could instead be a real area connected to map layers, existing infrastructure with its own limitations and planning conditions. For this demonstration, we start building from scratch by placing a few residential buildings to begin materializing our vision of the area. As soon as objects are placed, the system immediately measures our compliance with current planning guidelines and rules. If, for example, the buildings are placed too close to one another, that triggers a warning connected to overcrowding and daylight exposure. The user can either ignore the warning, which lowers the city score, or adjust the plan directly. This simple interaction actually shows one of the key insights described by our persona, Erica. Placing buildings closer together creates space for more apartments and potentially helps with housing demand, but at the same time it comes with consequences. Another example is infrastructure and traffic planning. Here, adding a road improves connectivity, but its proximity increases noise exposure for nearby residential buildings. This creates a direct conflict between different priorities and perspectives. A traffic planner may prioritise accessibility and mobility, while a noise or environmental expert becomes concerned about long-term health effects. Instead of these discussions happening separately in silos, the consequences become visible immediately inside Planopolis. And that was actually one of the strongest connections to the perspective of Johann's persona, where fragmented collaboration and disconnected decision-making kept returning as a challenge throughout the whole project. Once buildings are placed, we can also start improving connectivity and accessibility. One of our personas, Amira, highlighted that availability does not automatically equal accessibility. Even when parks or infrastructure exist nearby, people may not actually use them if environments feel disconnected, unsafe, or difficult to navigate. By connecting residential areas to green spaces using bike lanes and pathways, the mobility score increases in real time. On the right panel, users can continuously follow categories such as mobility, health and safety, environment, infrastructure, and overall score. The score updates continuously while we build, making trade-offs much more visible instead of remaining abstract or hidden inside reports and regulations. Inside the score view, users can also see exactly why specific changes happen and which factors affect the balance positively or negatively. The analysis panel focuses on more detailed environmental and public health indicators, such as tree coverage, pollution buffering, daylight exposure, mobility, and accessibility. And finally, the theory section explains the actual planning, environmental, mobility, and public health reasoning behind each metric. The idea is to connect research, policy, and spatial planning decisions into one interactive environment instead of separating them into disconnected reports, data sets, and guidelines. This strongly connects to Dr. Lindberg's persona that pointed out that the challenge was often not lack of knowledge, but making complex knowledge understandable, visible, and usable in real planning processes. And that is essentially what Planopolis attempts to do: make invisible systems visible, trade-offs easier to understand, and collaboration between different perspectives more possible.
Yes, and we see this especially valuable in early planning phases, workshops, and shareholder dialogues. Situations where shared understanding matters more than finding one perfect answer. That's our demo.
Yes, and this is a demo we showed experts both on municipal and regional level. And we asked for feedback. We asked and we wanted to check what's the value of the tool and what changes they would want to see. And the first valuable insight that we got from experts, they appreciated that Planopolis makes complex trade-offs more visible and more understandable. They appreciated as well that they could see directly the changes and the changes in city planning and their effects on public health. It was also highlighted to us that the tool could support the communication not only between experts on different levels, but also with politicians, planners and other stakeholders that are involved in creating urban area. And also could be used by students, and that was something we haven't even thought about. And lastly, the Planopolis could be a safe space to test different ideas and even make mistakes. The requested features from experts were mostly connected to realism. So they asked for more features like stormwater solutions, more biodiversity. Secondly, they also would wish to see real scenarios and real areas with topographies and different limitations that are existing in real world. Then experts also pointed out that different groups can be affected by a same solution in different ways. So they would want to see how they can be affected, and especially elderly and children. And lastly, they would wish to see long-term consequences of different solutions. So how they can affect the area later on. Yeah, and people in the area, yes.
So, this could sound like a long course, 20 weeks, but it's also a very short period of time. So, in this limited time frame, we only developed Planopolis as a concept and the prototype. So, we think going forward, if CAMM wants to elaborate on this, or anyone else, like, you should focus on a pilot, we think, like start with a small team with different professionals, developers, for example. Like start with one scenario and a limited number of health factors and planning guidelines, and that was actually something that from the feedback we got as well. Like maybe start with one health factor and one scenario, but that could be enough. And with the stakeholders will be an important collaboration partner in the whole process, so keeping them close and collaborate to see what you should include and not. As an iterative development process, I mean. Prototype tests, get feedback and refine through multiple iterations. We think that could be a great process for Planopolis. And it's a website today, or an online site, and it could be scalable. It can evolve over time and add new scenarios, guidelines, and features. But as I said, start small and then build from that. I think that would be interesting to see. And a pilot may not cost as much as develop the whole thing from scratch. So that could also be an economic factor to take into account. Yeah, that's it, guys, for us. Thank you so much.